Hey there! Welcome to Story Circle. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm so happy that you're here. And if you're new, hi, my name is Celeste. And on Story Circle, I get to read your stories. So if you ever have a story that you wrote and you want to share, check in the description below for how you can share your story. I'd love to read it. I can't believe it's warming up outside already. I love snow and I love winter, but I am so ready to get outside and check out nature and especially go to the beach, because my favorite thing about going to the beach, other than seeing the ocean, is having a picnic on the beach. Because I love picnic food on the beach. I don't know. The beach makes everything better, so why wouldn't it make picnic food taste better? And speaking of food, today's story, brought to you by our Philadelphia author, Guy Sims, talks about a greedy little, well, I'll tell the story so you can get a better idea of who we're going to be dealing with today and how Rife Powers has to put him back in his place. So, with that said, sit down. Do I have a story for you? Today we will be reading Baby-fied Hank from Rife Powers and Other Too Tall Tales by Guy A. Sims. It was one of those quiet afternoons where most folk would just lay back under a spreading tree, sip lemonade, and watch the clouds make a picture show. The youngins played by the river, floating boats made of bark and leaves, sending them off to faraway places, which usually meant ending up in the Yup Gully Pond. The smell of fresh-baked pies would also drift lazily on the air currents, seeking noses that just couldn't resist a little teasing. The town was pretty quiet this season, since most days were just like this one. Fingers Flesher, the local fiddler, was on his way to visit his sweetheart, Teeny Sweets. He had been planning this special day for about a month, and today he was ready. In one hand, he carried his fiddle, and in the other, he carried a large, fresh-baked, snappin' berry pie. With each step, he wished he could just stop and bite right into it. But the thoughts of the smile on Teeny's face made him control himself. He just breathed in the aroma and sighed. As he rounded a bend, Fingers came face to face with an odd-looking fella. He couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall. His body was round, as if he might have weighed about 200 pounds. Because of his weight, his legs bowed out, forming what looked like a horseshoe underneath his body. His face was the most unusual one. His head was egg-shaped and bald, except for one small collection of hair that rose straight up into the air. The sight was so unusual that Fingers nearly dropped both his fiddle and the pie. "Good day to you, friend." With each word the stranger spoke, Fingers could see that there was only one tooth in the stranger's mouth. "That sure smells good," the stranger smiled broadly. "The name is Hank Hanker." Fingers introduced himself to Hank, but could not shake his hand because of the pie and fiddle. "It seems that you might be lost on this good day. Perhaps I can give you directions," Fingers offered helpfully. "Not really. In fact, I'm not lost. I'm just hungry, and that pie looks mighty tasty." Hank moved closer to Fingers. He placed his nose in the pie and took a deep breath. "I'm very sorry, but this pie is for my sweetheart and..." Fingers could not finish another word. Hank's face became flushed and his fists became tight. "I want some pie." Hank stamped his foot down hard on the ground. Again, Fingers told him that the pie had somewhere else to go. "I want some pie! I want some pie! I want some pie!" Over and over, Hank repeated his request, but Fingers just ignored him. Suddenly, Hank fell onto the ground and began kicking, beating, and crying. Fingers started to walk away until he felt the ground begin to shake underneath him. The more Hank beat and kicked the ground, the stronger the shaking got. Still holding onto the pie, Fingers fell back onto a rock, just in time to get out of the way of a toppling tree. "Here, take the pie. Just stop the earth from quaking." Hank got up, wiped his eyes, and took the pie. Fingers was a-running too fast to notice the smile on Hank's face as he began to devour the snappin' berry pie. It was soon enough that the whole town knew about Hank Hanker. The lesson was learned on the day that the butcher refused to give Hank a side of beef. Hank commenced to scream, kick, and beat the ground. The town lost 3 buildings, including the brand new boot stomp hall. After that, whenever Hank wobbled into town and asked somebody for a home-cooked meal, a jug of cider, or just a fresh-baked pie, they would give it to him. It was understood that whatever Baby-fied Hank wanted, that's what he got. That's what folks called him behind his back. Because of the way folks treated Baby-fied Hank, he began to feel like he was a king. He started bossing folk around for no reason, threatening them with making their cottage fall over or opening up a hole in their crop field. Sometimes he would just kick and beat the ground just to get attention when it seemed that he was being ignored. Something had to be done, the town folk decided. One night, after Baby-fied Hank went to sleep, there was a town meeting behind the dairy. The people spoke in soft voices. "What are we gonna do? The man is ruining the town," cried the blacksmith. "He shook the school so hard that the bell won't ring. The children are coming late every day," snapped the school marm. "We've got to get rid of that Baby-fied Hank." Everyone was in agreement. After calming the folk down, the mayor announced that he would see Rife Powers and get him to help. Quietly, the people cheered and couldn't wait to see Rife Powers take care on Baby-fied Hank. Rife listened to the mayor's tale of woe and was moved to help. In fact, when he heard what happened to the schoolhouse, Rife began to fume. "Any man that would bust up a schoolhouse didn't need to be hanging around town." Rife planned to meet this Baby-fied Hank the next day. The mayor told Rife where and when he would find him, and Rife assured him that he would take care of him once and for all. When Rife arrived in town, the mayor had him disguise himself as a baker. He gave Rife a cart filled with fresh-baked snappin' berry pies. As Rife walked down the road, he heard a squeaky voice from behind him. "Those pies smell mighty good, and I sure would like to have a couple." Rife turned around and stared at the strange-looking man. Rife thought to himself, "This egg-headed, round-bodied, bow-legged man can't be Baby-fied Hank. The man doesn't look like he could hold his breath much more than make a tree fall over. I want those pies." Baby-fied Hank stuck his face into the top snappin' berry pie and commenced to eating. Rife grabbed Baby-fied Hank, raising him up off the ground, and set him down gently. "You sure got some awful bad manners. Why don't you run home? I've got a meeting with a giant of a fella named Baby-fied Hank." With that, Rife gave Baby-fied Hank a shove. "Well, if you got a meeting with Baby-fied Hank, then you already be meeting with him. Now that you done met me, give me those pies." Baby-fied Hank jumped into the cart. Once again, Rife picked up Baby-fied Hank and set him down on the ground. This time, Baby-fied Hank's face became hot, his eyes filled with tears, and he fell onto the ground, kicking and beating and crying. Rife started to laugh at the sight. The laughter stopped when he felt the ground beneath him begin to shiver, then shimmy, then shake. All of a sudden, the ground opened up, causing the cart, the pies, and Rife to fall in, all to be covered up by more dirt. With that, Baby-fied Hank wobbled to the center of town in search of more pies, since now he had a taste for them. It was 3 days before Rife crawled out of the hole and went to see the mayor. He explained that he remained in the hole because he needed time to think. Rife just didn't feel comfortable fighting a little man that not only looked like a baby, but acted like one. Even if Baby-fied Hank could make the ground shake, it just didn't seem right. Rife told the mayor that he had a plan, but it would take all of the townfolk to make it work. After telling the plan, the mayor agreed to pass the word. A day later, Baby-fied Hank was passing the bakery. The baker ran out and greeted him. "Howdy, Mr. Hank. Can I offer you some of my fresh-baked cookies?" Baby-fied Hank smiled. This was the kind of service that he enjoyed. He grabbed a handful of cookies and shoved them into his mouth. As he chewed, the smile left his face. His eyes opened wide, and so did his mouth as he spit out the cookies. They tasted terrible. "What kind of cookies are those?" Baby-fied Hank wiped his mouth out with his shirt sleeve. "It's my new recipe. I use sour milk. In fact, from now on, everything I bake will be made with sour milk." The baker smiled and offered Baby-fied Hank some more cookies, which he quickly refused. The baker laughed as Baby-fied Hank wobbled away, spitting and wiping his mouth. The smell of fried chicken led Baby-fied Hank to the front door of the blacksmith's shop. The blacksmith was sitting down, preparing to enjoy his lunch. Baby-fied Hank stood in front of the blacksmith with his hands outstretched. "Give me some of that fried chicken, else I'll make this whole place come tumbling down on you." "You don't have to do that, friend. Why don't you just sit down and join me? There's a plenty." Hank dropped to the ground and snatched 2 drumsticks from out of the basket. As he chewed, his eyes began to water. His mouth got hotter and hotter. He jumped up and ran inside the blacksmith's shop and dunked his head into a barrel of water used to cool the newly made horseshoes. When he returned, the blacksmith explained how the chicken was soaked for a week in a hot pepper juice. This is how he was going to enjoy his chicken from now on. Baby-fied Hank moved on. Now his stomach was grumbling. As he walked, he was stopped by Rife Powers. "Say there, Hank," smiled Rife. "You look like you could use a good meal. Why don't you join me at the town picnic?" Baby-fied Hank thought about it for a moment. His stomach was empty, and a little food would make things just right. The 2 of them walked over to the picnic grounds. Once the food was in sight, Baby-fied Hank moved to it as fast as his bow-legged legs could carry him. With each bite of food, he became more and more disappointed. The food was terrible. It was either too hot, too mushy, too sour, too cold, or just plain too awful. Baby-fied Hank began to cry. "I am so hungry." Rife walked up and put his arm around Baby-fied Hank's shoulder. "I know a place where the food is good and it's aplenty. If you want it, I could point you in the direction." Baby-fied Hank shook his head. He was ready for a good meal. Rife told them that if he went out west to the land with the other ocean, there would be tons for him to eat. Baby-fied Hank said that he would leave the next day. But when the townfolk offered him the chance to stay and eat, he decided to leave right then. When he was out of sight, the townfolk cheered, threw away the food, and prepared a new and delicious feast. Now and then, the message would get back to the townfolk that there had been some earth shaking out west. The news let the people know that Baby-fied Hank was alive and well, and being his old, spoiled self. The end. You know, I learned something. Sometimes the best way to deal with a bully is to give them what they want. Thanks, Guy, for that fun story. I also want to give a shout out to C.E.A.S for always providing the great music. Thanks, C.E.A.S. If you like what you heard, check out the description below for how you can hear more of C.E.A.S music. That's all we have for today. Join us next time as we read more of your stories here on the Story Circle. See ya!